Out here, and like I said, the question isn't. It's not so black and white.
Now, on the other token, we talk about morality. What do we feel morally about abortion?
I believe it's a woman's right to do what she chooses to do. I don't feel
that a woman should have multiple abortions because it does take a toll on your body.
And your body can only stand but so much medically.
Someone there to help me raise this child. If the man's not there.
And she said, "You okay?" And I was like, "No." I think that was the only person I told.
10, the woman basically is a parent that puts in a lot and invests a lot into this individual. Don't get me wrong, daddies are there.
I don't find it a question of pro-life or pro-choice. I'm pro-life because I don't necessarily believe in abortion. But I'm aware that I don't have a choice in the matter, and I believe that women should have the choice to have abortions or not.
Growing up, the word abortion really didn't have a meaning because I didn't know what it was. Because back then, women didn't have those alternatives. They had larger families because there was no birth control. And compared to today, where there is, I feel that abortion, to me personally, is a woman's right to choose. However, they have to be educated on what an abortion does to your body, what an abortion does to your family, and what abortion does to you mentally. Because it does take a toll. I feel that it is a woman's right whether or not she chooses to have an abortion. And I know it's a big decision that she has to think about very carefully because once you do that, it's no return. And there could be consequences to have an abortion or not having one.
What you have to go through to have an abortion, it's hard for me to believe that a woman would use birth control. Use abortion as a form of birth control. I think it's easier to get the pill or buy a condom than, use abortion.
I do believe some young women may use abortion as a means of birth control. My reasons for believing that is because they may be ignorant to actually what abortion is, like in depth of how, the toll it can take on you long term, or, I know it's different situations for different people, but, abortion can definitely lead to other complications down the road, and not for everyone, but definitely for some. And I know continuous abortions cannot be healthy for young women, any women, period, but more so young women because their bodies are not fully developed.
Against abortion.
I am for abortion. I believe that I'm completely pro-choice, and I believe that a woman's body and what happens to it is her decision.
Well, I believe that it's every woman's right to choose. I think that my personal view is that a woman decides what is best for her. So whether it is, I cannot answer for sure if I am for or against abortion.
I'm pro-choice. I believe it's a woman's right to do what she chooses to do. I don't feel like I should have any impact on a woman's decision.
As far as my generation, I think that abortion is more susceptible to teenagers leaning towards getting them, but I feel that before abortions, the Plan B pill is used far more out of content, because before it gets to abortion, I think everybody just has it in their mind, oh, I can just take Plan B. But little do they know that little pill, if it has the ability to completely terminate a pregnancy, it's ultimately doing things to the inside of your body as well. So I think that Plan B is just I wouldn't say safer way of abortion, but it has the same effects as an abortion. So I think that people are more careless with birth control and Plan B, but not so far as abortion.
All right. Regarding whether a man should have a say in whether a woman should have an abortion or not, that goes back to my whole belief and my whole argument between pro-life and pro-choice, because while I as a man can believe that I don't believe in abortions, I can't ever be faced with that choice of whether I'm going to have an abortion or not. So I'd have to say that even there's a whole other argument of whether women are man's property and should be thought of in that way, that a man should be able to say whether they can have an abortion. Ultimately, my answer is no. A man shouldn't have any kind of say in what a woman does with her body. But that's why I feel I have to be pro-choice.
Men having a voice. I believe that the final decision does come down to the woman, but a couple, basically a couple, your significant other, your husband, your wife, whoever it is, I think there should be a sit-down moment and to discuss the pros and the cons, discuss, my feelings, your feelings, how would it affect us emotionally, financially, where we are in life right now, and where we want to go, where we see ourselves 5-10 years from now, if a baby or another individual actually would fit into that. All that should be discussed between partners. But again, the final decision comes down to the woman. Why I'm saying this is because everybody knows that from the ages of 0 to 5 or even 10, the woman basically is the parent that puts in a lot and invests a lot into this individual. Don't get me wrong, daddies are there, but mommies are the ones that basically is the face, the advocate, the everything for this individual. And it does take toll on you physically, mentally. It's basically an investment, time, energy. So I think a woman's say should be the final say.
I do feel that women use abortion as a form of birth control. Not all women. Some women, they don't have, I don't want to say the education when it comes to sex ed, but they don't feel that they should make their mates use condoms, or they don't feel they should use some sort of protection, birth control, or anything like that. So that's the reason that some women feel it's just easier to go get an abortion to term a pregnancy than to just say, you know what, this is my body, let me make a decision, and keep in mind condoms and birth control pills and other forms of contraception.
Okay, do I think children now today are educated in having an abortion? I mean, that depends, because certain areas you have better schools that would educate the children, and in other areas you wouldn't have that. You have parents that would talk to their children about abortion, and then you have parents that won't. So it depends. I personally believe that all children at age of 10 and up should have that knowledge of what an abortion is, and I think parents should talk to their children more. But you have to remember, from my era, parents didn't talk about their children about sex. So a lot of girls got out there and they got pregnant, and they didn't even know that what it was. They didn't know what menstruation was. They didn't know a lot of things. But today, parents are more open with their children. But again, they don't discuss these things with their children. And like I said before, it depends on the schools, whether it's a better school or a different school. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's like a double-sided sword with that question. So I really can't say. That's just my opinion. I do not think they're educated enough.
I I do feel a man should take part in a woman's decision, in his woman's decision to have an abortion or not. If they are in a committed relationship or together, they are in this together. It shouldn't be a one-part decision. Although, again, it is a woman's ultimate decision, but I do feel he should have some type of say in it, definitely.
I believe that the media has a great impact on teenagers in this society as far as sexual exploration goes, merely because it could be something so simple as a poster for a clothing line, and the female will have on a bikini or something so revealing, and teenagers will look at that and say, I want to be that girl, or I want that, and it just portrays a negative image of them. But because it's what society accepts and what society has become, I think that it's almost like a norm, but I think that it does have a negative effect on teenagers in our society, females especially.
I do not think the government should regulate how many abortions a woman should have. I think that should be something that is handled by the medical profession. I think a woman's body, what happens to it is her choice, and your body can only stand but so much medically, and it should be something that's regulated by a medical profession. Unfortunately, some women don't realize your body can only stand 3, maybe 4 abortions. It's too much stress on the body, too much pulling on the uterus and the womb. Therefore, it should be something that's regulated by the medical profession and not the government.
I don't feel the government should be involved in the question of abortion to begin with, so I don't think that the government should regulate anything that has to do with abortion.
I do not think that the government should regulate how many abortions a woman should have. However, I don't feel that a woman should have multiple abortions, because it does take a toll on your body, mentally and physical. But the decision is the woman's, not the government.
Should abortion be regulated by the law? I honestly think yes. It is a health hazard. If that you're using abortion as a form of birth control, you can pay the price. I believe 3, 4, 5 abortions, that could be really detrimental to your health. It should be regulated both on state and federal level, and if it is that there's some form of agency that could actually keep track of an individual and give some type of education as the risk of having multiple abortions within a certain time frame, that would be helpful. Again, everything that we do in life basically could be altered by educating. So if for some reason there are multiple abortions being used as a form of birth control, agencies could actually use education as a tool to help fight back.
Well, the role that this debate plays in politics right now is part of a larger issue, and it's moving away from this whole idea that everything that has to do with politics today, it has to do with the financial crisis. There are moral issues in politics that have to be addressed, and right now in election time, it's a good time to bring it up because the Republicans have no way of winning, especially with the candidates that they have put forth. So it's good to see that these things are coming up again, because it was getting kind of scary watching this whole thing about where we were 4 years ago and where we are now. I mean, we're doing a lot better now, and just the fact that they're able to, this argument, the argument with abortion, has much to play with even the argument about gay rights. It's an argument about how much the government needs to be involved in people's everyday lives. And it's something that we should always be talking about, and it's what the democracy of the United States is built on?
Abortion is a very sensitive topic that politicians use many times as a football in order to gain certain votes from different voters for their own advantages. The government shouldn't be involved at all when it comes to your body, what you decide you want to do with your body. There has to be a limit to what government can regulate.
In some instances, adoption is a better option than abortion, but I don't feel that women should have to carry a baby to term that they don't want, because either they're going to have resentment toward the baby if they're forced to keep it or to put it up for adoption. They may have been raped. Should a rape victim be forced to carry a baby to term that they don't want, that's going to remind them of the horrible night of some violent crime? Should someone that was molested have to carry a baby to term that's going to remind them of their molester? I don't believe that adoption should be an option all the time. I think that it should be something that is a case-by-case basis, and again, it should always be the woman's choice, not the government or the medical professions.
There are questions now regarding, just regarding what's going on, the whole debate in politics about, the abortion issue is a small piece of the whole moral debate that's going on, but yeah, there's asking whether a man should have there should be questions around how men feel about the issue of abortion, because the whole debate that's going on now is amongst men.
Yeah.
And it's amongst men that are like 50 years old. Yeah, no, I hear. And then the alternate to that is women. But there's they don't show those men that say, hey, wait a minute, There's some of us out here, and like I said, the question it's not so black and white. There are black and white questions, but the question about abortion isn't an anti-life, pro-choice thing, Okay. It's hard to, I'm in between. When I'm at my job, I wonder sometimes if somebody asked me that, how they would react to me saying, I'm anti-abortion, but I'm pro-choice.
Adoption may not be a better choice for young women. I think that after the child is born, emotionally, women go through something, and to, so to speak, have your child taken away from you in that essence is different than actually having the procedure of an abortion. You don't see the child. You're not so connected, so to speak, with the child. But once the child is actually born and here and you see it, and you have to hand that child over now to someone else as a possibility that you may never see this child again, if you're not mentally and emotionally prepared to do that, then maybe adoption may not be the best route for you to go.
Closing remarks being, look, I think one of the greatest things that we have living in the society that we live in is that we have options. There is something called abuse of options, and there is something called lack of education that we don't know that we have options out there. I believe that before you even consider having an abortion, consider using proper protection. It is very, very, very important. Not only with abortion, but STDs, stuff like that. You just don't need the aggravation, honestly. Luckily for us, we live in a state that basically we have the option, another option of the morning after pill that could be utilized. For anyone basically that needs information out there, you can go online. I mean, there are a lot of information out there. Utilize your information. And if it is that you are pregnant and you're actually considering abortion, it is something that you should sit down and discuss with someone who is, I would say, doesn't have a vested interest. It could be a psychologist. It could be, psychiatrist. It could be someone from your local clinic. Someone who doesn't have a vested interest, but someone who can give you basically the hardcore facts and basically tell you what, you know what, you need to make the decision what you want to do. And when you make a decision, promise yourself that you're not going to go back there again and you're going to do it right the next time.
The arguments that are going on now just seem to be, the politics time thing. And they seem to be a clever way for the Democrats to move the argument away from the financial crisis and into something that the Republicans can't win.
To the younger generation, because I haven't seen it all. Every day there's something new. But for the younger generation, I would say, get educated. If you must have sex, use some sort of birth control, because it's your body, and it's going to be your child. And maybe one day you may be a grandparent or a mother, and you may have to tell your child the same thing. So you have to be educated. You have to do something with your life first, or get a career first, and then decide to have a family where you can provide for them. Well, when you're young and you're 12 and 13 years old and you're a child, raising a child is very difficult, I would think. So I would think read books, talk to people, get brochures, go to birth control. There's a lot of programs, there's a lot of things out there for both boys and girls, but you have to be educated on abortions and other things in the world. That's what my advice to be. And if you are in a fix or you are in a jam and you're pregnant right now as you're watching this, call Planned Parenthood. Call an uncle, call an aunt, call someone that you can confide in, because I know this must be a difficult decision for you, and I can understand what you're going through. And opposed to making the wrong decision where you try to go like in a back alley or go to these people that's not professional, where you're going to end up hurting yourself, I think that you should talk to someone. And, it's hard and the decision is difficult, but you're human and everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. So I would seek help from someplace.
As far as abortion goes, do you feel government should play any role regarding how many abortions a woman can have?
No. The question has to kind of broaden. Obviously, citizens should have the right to do whatever they want, and many times that they want, and they don't have to register with anyone who they are, how many times they're having an abortion or when they're having an abortion. I think you mean the question as it relates to people on public assistance or using some kind of public health care or private health care to get an abortion. If you're using private health care and your health care provides you with an abortion or pays for an abortion or whatever else, there shouldn't be any limit, and I don't believe there is. Now, people on public assistance who are using some kind of government health care because they're poor or they're handicapped or whatever the reason why they're on public assistance, I think there's a segment of the public that wants to regulate them, limit them. I don't think the government should be able to do that, and I think it becomes a slippery slope when you allow something like that. Each person receiving assistance from the state or the government, whether it be in food stamps, welfare, or health insurance, has a responsibility to use those funds correctly or use those funds responsibly.
Okay.
If the government wants to set regulations in certain ways to make sure that people do that, they should be able to do that. But it should always err on the side of the people who have the freedom to do what they want. They shouldn't be limited to not do it. I'll give you an example. Someone would say, okay, after 2 abortions or 3 abortions in a certain amount of time, the government shouldn't have to pay for it. But if a person's on public assistance as it is, a child is far more expensive to the state than the abortion would be.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
So you're not saving any money. Those decisions are usually based on people's moral feelings, how they feel about a person having multiple abortions. So once you talk about that, once it gets to the line of how you feel, how we feel morally or personally about that person having abortions, the financial conversation comes out of it. A child is definitely more expensive than an abortion. Over the course of that child's life on public assistance with that mother, that child is going to cost the state way more money than what the abortion would have cost. So the money argument is out of it. The moral argument, that's what the Constitution is for. The Constitution is to defend ourselves from each other. My moral beliefs should not affect your right and your freedom to live the way you want to live.
Okay. Okay.
The closest thing to regulation I would do, but I would want to see this across the board. I wouldn't single out abortion on this issue. The state should realistically be able to set some type of limitation on your actions in the form of a kind of penalty. Okay? And I'm just throwing this out there. If the state decides that they will pay for an abortion and they'll pay for, let's say, one abortion in a year or one abortion every 2 years, anything exceeding that, the cost of that should come out of that same recipient's tax return or some other way. Remember, this is a person receiving public assistance.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
The money they're receiving is coming from the taxpayers regardless. And so they should be, if they're going to abuse that free money and abuse those services, then the state should pull back on those services in some other way. Right? You can get as many as you like, but at some point, right, the government is going to offset its cost. So if it costs an additional $350 to give you that third abortion this year, then the government is going to make that money back by not giving you that equivalent in your tax return.
Okay. That makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
And remember, a tax return is not like, they're not going to cut off your food. They're not going to cut off, your housing assistance. They're not going to cut it off in some way that makes you destitute or hurts your living. You're just not going to get the extra money you'd be getting on a tax return.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Next question I should have asked you before we got into the second question, but next question, are you pro-life or pro-choice?
I think like most people, I'm pro-choice, but I would be comfortable with seeing some changes in the law as long as it still was always legal for a person to get an abortion when they wanted to.
Okay.